Hi, I'm Bob Ross. This is Art 125 Silkscreen, and today we're looking at the printing process. So this episode is about printing. So to begin with, we've prearranged some of the elements that we're going to be using for the printing. We have the screen that we showed you in one of our last videos with the image in the emulsion on the screen ready to go. Underneath that image is the paper that we're going to print on, and you can see that the paper is actually already connected to the registration pins that are set beneath the screen also, so I can reattach my paper to the registration pins. And below that is our backing board. That's the surface that provides us a smooth area on which to print. So I'm going to drop my screen and get it ready for printing. In addition to that, I have my squeegee. This is a 14-inch squeegee, and it goes a little bit past the edge, about an inch past the edge of my design. So I'm going to set that back here in what I refer to as the trough of the screen. In addition to that, I have about 1/3 of a cup or a little bit closer to 1/2 a cup of screen ink that's ready to print with. I like to encourage students to measure out the quantity of the ink that they're going to use, but after a while you'll probably get pretty good at guesstimating what you're going to use. In addition to that, I've got a small spatula here that I can use for pulling the ink out. I've got some paper here for cleanup, and I usually like to keep a small roll of masking tape around just in case I have a little spot that I need to block out on the screen. So we're pretty much ready to go. What I want to mention to you is that when you print, I want to encourage you to think about a couple of things during the actual pull of the print. And one of those things is the angle of the squeegee. So your squeegee needs to be at about a 45-degree angle. You want to be cautious of squeegeeing really low like this or really high like this. Try to keep it at about a 45-degree angle if you can. When you pull the squeegee, and I'm going to pull it dry now, when you pull it, you're actually going to be kind of leaning in on it to put pressure down on the screen and pulling it toward yourself at the same time. That's going to be a set of contradictory sorts of body motions that will feel a little uncomfortable initially, but you'll become accustomed to it in a short period of time. So I'm ready to print. What I'm going to do is place my ink in a kind of an ink well, some would refer to it as, up above the actual stencil design. So I'll simply pour the ink out, and I'll use my spatula to bring out a little of the extra, and there's plenty of ink there to handle the job that I'm going to do. And I've gotten the ink out past the edges of the image. So I'm going to take my squeegee, I'm going to place it behind the actual ink well so that none of my ink remains when I pull the squeegee. It all is going to come forward with me. 45-degree angle, and I'm ready to pull. When I finish the pull, I want to keep my squeegee at about a 45-degree angle and kick the squeegee back slightly. That will separate the ink from the screen and keep the ink well down there. Now if I lift my screen up, I can see that my design is complete. Now I'm going to lift this sheet of paper out, and I've got a second sheet of paper down here. This print would go to the drying rack, but this time I'm going to pull it a little differently, and I'm going to place a stick here. Before, there was nothing between the screen and the table, and so I was printing in a format we call on contact, where the screen actually touches the printing paper that you're working with. In this instance, I'm going to print off contact, and that helps to eliminate something that you're going to become familiar with called kiss marks. I'm also going to print in reverse direction. I'm not going to pull toward myself, I'm going to push away from myself. So because I'm off contact, I'll need a little more pressure when I get toward the back of the screen where the screen is actually raised. But this is a very useful technique for eliminating what we call kiss marks. So I'll take my squeegee now, and I'll push back in the opposite direction, and again, kick off and bring my squeegee back down here, set it in the trough of the screen, lift up, And there again is my image printed a second time with the different directional application. So now that I've finished pulling 2 prints, I'm going to slide the prints off to the side. You would ordinarily want to take them over to the drying rack, okay? But I'm going to take my excess ink and I'm going to squeegee it back into either the ink container that I used or one of the ink pots that we have. And as I do that, I'm going to set this squeegee off to the side so that I can wash it off. But I also have to make sure that I'm paying very close attention to the ink that's on the screen to get that off as quickly as I can so that it doesn't dry in the screen. And this is where these little cards become handy. This is the ink pot that I actually took my ink from. I measured it. I'm going to set it on the screen. I'll take my 2 ink cards. I'll grip the ink this way. And we want to minimize the amount of excess ink that we wash down the drain or put into the environment. And that's one way to do it, by removing it from your screen. I will now take the screen, disconnect it from the table, and in a future video, we'll talk about actually washing or cleaning out the screen itself. But I'm taking it over to the sink and I'll wash it out. We'll cover that in a future episode.